from Jesus' most famous sermon. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. Maybe you've heard of it before. Now, I always think of this as being a very kind of, strange name for his famous sermon. You see, Jesus does indeed go up a mountain. He's actually up there praying with his disciples. They're having a bit of a retreat and actually a really good time together. They're laughing and they're crying and they're praying, but it's one of those good moments in life. And I'm sure you've experienced them where everybody's together and it just, you feel that the peace and love so strongly in your relationships. And then something happens. It's interesting. Jesus comes down from the mountain. You see, the Sermon on the Mount isn't given from a mountain. It's given actually on a plain. And what's more interesting is how Jesus interacts with the people to whom he's preaching. Let me read it for you, just a couple verses right before the passage that I just read. How it describes the scene before Jesus starts to preach. Jesus came down from the mountain with his disciples and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. Those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured, and all in the crowd were trying to touch him. For power came out of him and healed all of them. Those are the descriptive words. And then it begins the actual Sermon on the Mount. What was it that Jesus said to them as he mixed with them? So what strikes me about this whole story is how vulnerable Jesus is. You see, Jesus was having a wonderful time on his retreat with the disciples, preparing them to be sent out as, the 70, to be prepared to send out 2 by 2 to go minister to the people. They were having a wonderful time. And then Jesus left that safe place. And he came down from the mountain. And he met with those people who were, not treated very well by society. It was the people who were diseased, the people who had unclean spirits, the people who were rejected, the people who were broken. And Jesus mingled with them. He allowed them to touch them, a thing that no good, upright, standing Jew would ever do. And all they had to do was touch him, to be near him, and the power just came out of him because he was willing to be among them. Jesus shows an incredible amount of vulnerability here because he leaves the safe place to go to the uncomfortable place, to the smelly place, to the broken place, to the place where there's lots of pain and lots of heartache. And then he stays among those people. It's a powerful story, and it's a powerful image. And it's the exact opposite of what we do today. You see, we don't like being vulnerable. We don't like uncomfortable places, at least if you're like me or like the way that society has taught you. We tend to inoculate, to numb ourselves, to build walls between us and anything that would help to make us feel helpless or vulnerable. We avoid those who are, broken because it's too uncomfortable. We don't even like to talk about things that don't go right, or things that are strange. This is all the more so when we talk about death and dying and decaying. It's a hard subject, and our society tends more and more these days to want to avoid it. Author and speaker Brené Brown once said, "When we try to numb those things that are uncomfortable or pose a risk to us, feelings of sadness, grief, and vulnerability, we also numb our capacity to feel joy, satisfaction, and happiness." It's a powerful quote. There's a cost to not being willing to be vulnerable. There's a cost to cutting ourselves off from the feelings of uncomfortableness, of death and dying, of brokenness, to the things that pose a risk to us. If we're unwilling to be vulnerable, then she says, we're not going to feel true joy, satisfaction, and happiness. And then this goes against the way that we're taught to live these days. There's a video that I want to show you. It's a short 4-minute video. The speaker is Glennon Doyle Melton, and she's a powerful speaker. I've shown videos of her before. I've actually shown videos from this conversation before. But she's going to talk about grieving and death. And I wanted to show it real quick for us. There's sound to the video as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. think that we try to protect ourselves by not allowing our hearts to be broken. But I actually think that a broken heart is not the end of anything. I think it's the beginning. I think that most of the magic in my life has happened when my heart is shattered. And it reminds me of that story of the Velveteen Rabbit about how you become real. When you become real, when the shine wears off of life, and where things have fallen apart, and people have come to you during that time, and people have allowed you to grieve. And grieving with another human being, I think, is one of the most holy places to be. We avoid pain, but sometimes the pain and grief is the place to be with other people. It's the realest place we can be. And I consider my work, my most important work, to continuously allow my heart to be broken for other women. That's what I do when I read this letter. So I just spend some time allowing my heart to be broken open for someone else. I think that's how we end up feeling connected to other people on this earth, is because grief is grief is grief, and pain is pain for all of us. And that's the place where we can connect. I think that we don't make space for each other to grieve because I think it's a skill that we're not taught, and we shy away from it. We're afraid. That's why we say so many ridiculous things like, oh, it happens for a reason, and God has a plan, and all those really awful things that we say to other people when they're grieving, when really we don't have to fix it, because grief is like joy. It's not something to be fixed. It's just a magical, it's an honor of being human. And it's something that everyone has to go through, and we shouldn't grab from each other. When a friend is grieving, all we have to do is be present with her. And I think if we just accepted our presence as a gift, instead of always trying to find the right thing to say, people would feel more capable of grieving with each other.
What was that quote you shared? Something about in order to gain light, you gotta be burned. What does that do?
Oh yeah, I think it was Victor Frankl that said, in order to be the light, you have to be burned first. I mean, there is nobody that I take advice from who hasn't been through the ringer a few times. That's where wisdom is born. It's when everything falls apart. And you find out that, one of my favorite quotes is, you have to let everything fall apart before you find out what's indestructible about you. And that's the beauty in my life of everything falling apart, is that it's always in the beginning.
Today is a day that we remember. We remember those who have died, not just in the last year, but those who have died maybe even a long time ago. Those people who had a powerful impact on our lives. Those people who taught us what it meant to love. But today's the day we grieve the deep loss that we feel inside of us. But today is also a day we celebrate. It's a day we celebrate because we worship not a God who is far off and distant, but a God who came near, a God who came off the mountaintop experience, the wonderful time, and showed us how we live in a broken world. A broken world where pain is real and close at heart. Jesus showed us how to do this by coming and walking among us, by not running away from the uncomfortable, not running away from that which smelled, that which would hurt, that which was taboo. He ran, he came down, and he dwelt among us, and he allowed us to touch him, to show us this is how you live, by being present for one another, by caring for one another, by loving one another, even in these most difficult of times. Brokenness is a new beginning. I love that phrase that she says. When we are broken, it's an opportunity for God to take away the things in our lives that are rotten, the things in our lives that prevent us from encountering the powerful blessings of God, and allow us to be remade as the people God originally intended us to be. Amen?
Amen.
Our takeaways from today is that first quote I read. When we try to numb those things that are uncomfortable or pose a risk, feelings of sadness, grief, and vulnerability, we also become numb our capacity to feel joy, satisfaction, and happiness. Vulnerability is important. We have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, not to run away from it, but to embrace it, because it allows us to feel joy, satisfaction, and happiness. And our second takeaway is the quote from that video. My most important work is to allow my heart to be broken on behalf of others. And that's what we remember today. That allowing our hearts to be broken is a good thing, not something to be run away from, because it allows us to live in love. Let's stand for our song today.